What is the most messed up thing found in a Mario game? Now normally, Mario games and disturbing things don't typically go hand in hand. The worlds are playful, and generally rated E for all ages. So Nintendo does their best to keep them squeaky clean. But, you know, sometimes things slip through the cracks. Something is put into the game that makes it pass quality assurance. Or something is deemed acceptable in Japan, but raises a red flag in other regions. And, today our story actually dodges both of those things. Translations was never aware of it, and a quality assurance person never would have encountered it. So I hope you enjoy this look back at something that never should have been put into the game to begin with. And if you enjoy odd videos like this, consider subscribing now to get weekly videos just like this one. Now those of you familiar with this channel may be familiar with a video I released not too long ago about the dead body of a toad that was covered up in a Mario game. Honestly, I started working on this video before that one, but ultimately decided to release that one first. It's not too surprising considering the game it takes place in, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, features a cutthroat town full of shady characters. I mean, there's a gallows in the town square, and in some tool sets, you can actually, casually go for a swing. I lost my mind when playing with a cheat tool set active, and I actually jumped through the noose and it caught Mario. So that's something disturbing and unexpected. Mind you, this doesn't normally happen, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me jump myself when it did. But when it comes to the history of questionable things in Mario games, lots of people go back to Super Mario RPG. Now unfortunately, this game sort of was missed by the younger generation of today given its lack of Nintendo Switch support, at least currently. It was on Virtual Console on the Wii U and Wii, but for some reason never made the leap to the Switch. This was one of my favorite adventures as a kid, so to find out something like this existed many years later was a bit surprising to me. And the context of this one isn't really that it's disturbing, it's just comically surprising to find it hinted at in a Mario game. If we head to Princess Peach's bedroom in the castle and start rummaging around her room like the creep that we are, we can eventually find something behind the fireplace. On screen, we will see found toadstools ? Depending on where you are in the game, you can either encounter her grandma, who tells you to put it back after scolding you, or if Peach is with you, she'll tell you to stop peeking into other people's rooms. Now, the question is here, what is someone hiding in their castle bedroom behind the fireplace where hopefully no one should look? And there's been a lot of interesting theories about this. Since I'm dodging demonetization bullets left and right in this video, let's just say it could be a adult-focused toy, or perhaps even adult-oriented beverages. Yes, that sounds pleasant and won't hinder the YouTube gods at all. Some people even think it's a collection of adult alone time magazines. Please don't demonetize me. But here's the thing, this is kind of implied in some ways too. Obviously, the context in which they're discovered and where they're stored are strong indicators. But there's another issue of translation too. The Japanese item name swaps out the 3 question marks with 3 X's, and those X's carry a different weight to them. So it could be one or the other. And as people have pointed out online, adult-oriented beverages also carry that 3X label in media to show off what it is. So lots of things fit the bill. Although stashing explosive beverages behind a fireplace sounds like a recipe for disaster. But both of these examples, the dead toad and the very much alive toadstool, are things the translations team were aware of. And thus, they adjusted them to make the game more friendly for English audiences. But like I said earlier, not everything can be caught in translations, and not everything can be reviewed by your quality assurance team. Sometimes the problem is hidden deeper into the game to where someone had to look into the files themselves instead of making an assessment off of a build. And that puts the true subject of today's video in a different category, because it's 100% a mistake, and it should have been something that never should have made it into the game's file system whatsoever. Enter Mario Kart Arcade GP. This version of Mario Kart debuted in arcades as standalone machines in 2005. The game featured a camera that you could use to take a photo of your face, and then this picture will be displayed on screen during races. Overall, if you could locate an arcade to play it in, it was a jolly good time. But the fact that it was an arcade game also gave it some rarity in a preservation sense too. Unless you got your hands on a Triforce arcade system or a cabinet yourself, there really wasn't a way to play them as emulation hadn't branched out fully into the world yet. So it wasn't until years later that people started combing through this game to dump the files it contained. And on February 25th, 2012, roughly 6.5 years after the game came out, a user named Vern94 posted 3 images found within the game's files. All of these images were JPEGs labeled as cam tests. The theory being that these images were perhaps used at one point to fill in as the player camera images, while the camera hardware itself was not fully implemented yet. The first image is a bunch of colored bars, the second is mascots from an event called Expo 2005, and the last is a terrorist attack, an attack where 333 people died. This event was the Belsen school siege that took place on September 1st in 2004 within Russia. And, yeah, it's very strange that this file itself would make it into the game. Now, I could maybe excuse the file being accidentally saved in one of the game's folders mistakenly. Web browsers have a habit of putting images into folders we've accessed before, and we're so familiar with the motion of saving files that we speed through the process without realizing where we saved something to. But the problem with this is that the file itself was named. It was deliberately named as a cam test, meaning at some point this image was at least intended to be booted into the game in some capacity. Sure, it might have been a temporary stand-in until the camera hardware was fully tested and functional, but why this image? Why would someone specifically choose a tragedy where hundreds of people died? It's possible they didn't know where it was from, but it was current news back then when this was in development. But this raises another thought. So years ago, I remember watching a Boundary Break episode about how manga panels from Sailor Moon were included in Punch-Out. Now, these manga panels were obscured, but by moving the game's camera through emulation, they could be seen. This wouldn't ever happen during normal gameplay, but these panels allegedly sparked a lawsuit, since Punch-Out was distributed with images it didn't have the rights to. Now, I'm not the first person to cover the Belsen school siege image, so it is already known and out there online. But according to research featured on the cutting room floor, this image itself is a cropped segment of a licensed full-scale image with Getty Images, something you normally have to pay to use, especially for commercial or promotional uses. So the fact that it was distributed through builds of the game immediately makes me think of that alleged Sailor Moon Punch-Out scenario. But then again, perhaps this doesn't fall into either of those realms. Getty Images has a policy around what it calls unreleased imagery, which is stock content catered towards editorial use for real-world events. In this case, it could be neither commercial or editorial, given the context of the mistake. It definitely makes you wonder if someone got in trouble for this. All in all, it's kind of weird that someone utilized this image for testing purposes, given the weight of the tragedy. But that's why in my book it's one of the most messed up things found within a Mario game. So, ever find something messed up in a game yourself? Let me know in the comments below, as I'd love to hear about it. Subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in my next video. Cheers!